Access Wireless Digital is the perfect...
Hello everyone, welcome to Pro AV Live. I am joined once again by Chris Javin from Blackmagic. Thank you for joining us again, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Carl. Thanks for having us, and thanks for hosting this, obviously, on your channel today. Really excited to deliver, obviously, this new webinar on web broadcasting.
Yeah, what are we talking about today?
So we're going to look at web broadcasting kind of as a whole. So we're going to delve into how this market's evolved. We're going to look at the different aspects and how that trajectory has kind of happened over, especially the last year, obviously, with a lot of changes and a lot of people looking at new avenues to get content out. So we'll look into that, and then we'll basically specifically relate that back to the new ATEM mini range.
Sure, which I have one of right here in front of me. This is the brand new ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, which is very exciting. It's obviously not connected to anything at the moment. It's just a unit by itself, so it's a bit pointless really. But I thought I would, since I had it here in the showroom, plug it in and show it on stream, because we're actually one of the few places in the UK right now to have stock of this. So if anyone at home is looking at buying one of these and wants it soon, we have stock which is going very, very fast. So probably best to place an order now if you do actually want one, because I almost expect that stock to run out by midday. You know, they're going really, really fast.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just for everyone watching at home, what I'm going to do is explain the way today's going to work. So it's slightly different to some of our ordinary streams. What I'm going to do is hand over to Chris so that he can run you through the presentation and the overview. And then we will come back at the end for questions. I can see some coming in now. Thank you, Pete, for the questions. Hello, Philip. Hello, Fry. Thank you very much for joining us. We will answer as many questions as we possibly can, but we are going to save them all till the end and have a sort of Q&A session at the end of it. We'll let Chris go through the presentation before then. But yeah, leave anything in the YouTube chat as we go or in the Facebook comments, and I will save them all until the end and ask them away. So yeah, over to you, Chris. Let's talk about some web broadcasting.
Thank you, Carl. Right, so obviously, yeah, just to introduce myself again, it's Chris Javin here from the technical sales specialist team at Blackmagic Design EMEA. And today we're going to be talking about web broadcasting. So there has been a real interesting shift in the type of productions being made and the delivery methods for live production content over the last couple of years, which led to the development of products like the ATEM mini range. And this will be our focus for the presentation today. So just to look at the agenda of what we're going to be covering in today's session, we're going to look at the web broadcasting trajectory, a quick look into that and the interaction between content creators and audiences. We'll then look into the influencing factors. So we'll discuss some of those factors that define the grounds of web broadcast and live streaming in this competitive yet super exciting marketplace. We're then going to move into an actual practical little demo session where I'm just going to go into the control software with my ATEM Mini Pro, and I'm going to show you some really relevant and useful tools and tips. And then we'll finish off before the Q&A looking at some solutions and workflow examples. So a closer look into the ATEM Switcher family range and how to combine BMD solutions and online platforms for production of any size at any level. So let's dive straight in. So obviously this is a large market that has massively grown in popularity over the last 15 years, thanks to obvious internet technology and the revolution initiated by video sharing, social media and OTT over the top content platforms. It's now evolved into so many forms and accessible from so many devices, which makes it kind of difficult to imagine a paradigm of communication kind of without it. So let's move on. Blackmagic Design offers a broad range of products.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry to interrupt. Are we meant to be seeing some slides? I don't think the audience can see the slides.
Well, Let's go.
Sorry to throw you.
No, absolutely, mate. I'm so glad you did, because that is me being very stupid and
Oh, there we go.
Actually,
That's the trouble with doing a morning stream.
Oh yes, yeah. Concentrating so much on actually delivering the slides, I forgot to actually check over on my multi-view. So apologies about that. I will just go back up and just talk. Well, in fact, let's just dive straight back in.
Let's just carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, Blackmagic Design offers a broad range of products which can fit perfectly into these markets. Our solutions span from acquisition sources to signal distribution, passing through processing, hardware and software, with the aim of facilitating the delivery of high quality content while preserving and enhancing the creative intent. Each of the application you can see in this slide use very similar components, if not the same, from source to destination. It may just be that they use them in uniquely different ways to get that different requirement. But again, it is very much the same kind of product base. And that's the thing we will come back to a little bit later to discuss that in a bit more detail and look at some actual schematics of setups. So obviously in the last year, we're all very aware of the pandemic. We've worked relentlessly throughout this pandemic to try and offer you updated products within this line, and obviously give you solutions that can get everyone working and producing content. The pandemic has obviously shaken up the AV industry massively, and for many it's represented a turning point or shift in their careers. Some of you are taking this time to reflect on your options and rephase in front of these new challenges. Working from home, smart working, remote attendance are striking examples of the new way of working collectively and partaking in private or public events. The sudden spike in these activities has reinforced the need for remote and affordable solutions. So talking about remote access and locations, although beneficial to some, being in a dedicated or prime location is no longer a must for many. The nature of programs and coverage, as well as the multiplication of events, require productions to expand or contract in different areas and adapt rapidly to the constantly changing circumstances, meaning that it's imperative to invest wisely on time, resources and equipment. We are glad and fortunate to say that neither the pandemic or the fast changing nature of this market have prevented us from being extremely responsive to our customer needs and our developers and engineers that strive to deliver products and features of outstanding quality. This can be seen very evidently in our most recent product release. So let's identify some of the influencing factors in the web broadcasting market, which, like I've mentioned, is obviously super exciting and lively now more than ever. So for the larger majority of productions, this can be traced back to either a profit, a service, or a hobby activity. We're aware that some of you already involved in this business. This will just be a reminder of why and how you decided to make your move. But for people new to this, it can represent the beginning of a new, exciting challenge, which requires some planning and strategic thinking. So whether you start from a blank canvas or you're looking at reshaping your current production workflow, it is important to set out your intentions and find out which of the following aspects need to be established, built, or maintained in order to define your digital engagement. Only after drawing a clear picture can we match these aspects to a subset of tools that our solutions offer, and we'll show some of them practically later on in the presentation. So recognition is one of the hardest things to achieve in a busy marketplace, especially if you're trying to get started or stand out from the crowd. The ATEM mini range, which we'll shortly look at in a bit more detail, offers tools and features that can make you instantly recognizable, such as logo and titles. Making impact through creativity is yet another crucial aspect to successful audience engagement and an overall better experience. This could be achieved by layering animated graphics, lower thirds, keyers, P&Ps, so picture in pictures, which help to diversify your communication style, making it more striking and appealing. Building reputation relies on quality and consistency of your content through different platforms. And our webcast solutions give you the necessary confidence to broadcast your program, fulfilling industry quality standards. Some of our models let you record all of your sources and program while streaming live so that you can repurpose your content for subsequent editing and uploading. Adding those extra bits to promote your production and showcase that creativity. When your service or production has the potential to catalyze an audience, we need to make sure that that has enough reach. This can be achieved by casting a larger net through a variety of platforms, either online or via a traditional broadcast infrastructure. This requires an understanding of the delivery and networking options offered by those chosen solutions. Some of the ATEM mini models, in fact, include onboard video encoders, direct streaming, as well as optional conversion and signal distribution accessories to suit your workflow. So what do we offer? This is where we're going to discuss where we stand and what we bring to market through our solutions. Obviously, the shift being today's kind of primary focus, the ATEM mini range, and obviously the new ATEM mini extremes. BMD, we've always been at the forefront of the media technology industry, and we've strived to bring affordable products to market that allow for creative people to do more of what they love. There are some aspects that are common in all our product range, and they represent the backbone of our solutions, including those designed for web broadcast applications like the ATEM family range. So accessibility, this is something that really drives us as a company. It's something that was kind of one of the founding ethoses, and it's to make products at a price that make them accessible and allow creatives to produce high quality, engaging content. This is shown in our recent additions to the ATEM range, listening to customer feedback, and now having 5 different ATEM minis within the family, allowing for access for all budgets. Usability, so a compact form factor as well as clear and simple button layouts allow these units to sit discreetly in several different production environments and keep the main function controls still at your fingertips. So whether you are self-operating or managing your presentation or catering a simple solution for somebody else to help you with, no task should be too daunting. We tend to use the same applications and menus in our products. So as such, the ATEM control software is used throughout the whole ATEM range. So once you've built up that knowledge in using one of those ATEM products, you can use them all, and it just very much becomes scalable. Reliability and quality, so the signal integrity is well preserved from source to destination. It's in really good hands. In fact, the ATEM minis process audio and video feeds with the same precision as our top of the range broadcast switches, with the addition of great onboard encoding quality and recording options optimized for the most popular live streaming applications and platforms. Scalability is something that we strive for here at Blackmagic, and most, if not all, our products are designed to ease that future expansion and ability to add to your systems, giving you a clear upgrade path. Again, as we use open standards and common technologies, you're not locked into a given ecosystem, and that's something we pride ourselves on, is this flexibility within our product range. So now comes the part where we are going to delve in to a bit of the software, and I'm going to show you some cool, neat little tools and tips. But just to give you an idea, this is the setup that I'm running here at the moment, actually from my studio bedroom. So our setup is fairly simple. In its center, we've got the ATEM Mini Pro. It manages all of our sources and will create an output, which is commonly referred to as a program. This is what obviously your spectators will see wherever it is that you're pushing it out. I'm currently using the USB-C output to give me software control and also handle the stream, obviously, that's being directed through to YouTube. This is very likely how people will use it in a typical web conference or webinar environment via something like Skype or Zoom. I only have 2 sources in at the moment, but adding others is super easy. For example, I could add another PC, and when I do that, what actually happens with that HDMI cable is that the ATEM will actually negotiate with the PC, basically isolating the best resolution for that PC to be pumping out for the ATEM to be working with in that kind of major project setting that is set up that everything will then adhere to. And this could be done with the console as well. So you can set that PC HDMI actually kind of how it works going into the ATEM actually becomes how you see an external monitor. So within my Mac, for example, I'm actually set at the moment to an extended monitor, but you can also duplicate the screen and mirror your screen so that that is then taken through, obviously, into your production. Connecting the camera is just as easy as working with something like a PC or a gaming console. As long as that camera is not above 1080p 60, it will appear pretty much instantly on your multi-view. A great feature of the ATEM mini range are the internal standard converters on all of the inputs, which means it can convert pretty much any resolution, PC or broadcast, to match that program resolution, obviously as long as it is sitting within the resolution limits of the unit. This means that you don't necessarily have to replace everything in your setup or to buy new gear, since the ATEM is so flexible with the sources that it will accept. So if you have an older camera, for example, a 720p, no problem, that will work and go into the ATEM, and again either be up converted to a high resolution that you've set as your main project resolution, or staying at 720 and everything else being converted down to that. And that's another great aspect of the ATEM minis, and generally again with our products, just giving that scalability that we talked about before. It allows you to grow your setup depending on your budgets and your needs. So again, maybe starting out with older action cameras that you've picked up for, you know, or that you have lying around at home anyway, and then when that production starts to grow, your reach starts to grow, your audience starts to grow, you can then look to invest in higher end cameras that again will help to raise that production value. So I think there's a lot of great things there in the sense of the scalability of it, and again ease of use and plug and play. So we will now dive into the software. So if you just give me 2 seconds, I'm just gonna get the software up and then also just mirror my screen. So we are now into the software. So I've mirrored my output, and you are now seeing the software that is nicely laid out on my desktop. So what we're working with here is a remote control app. So this is a remote control app that is obviously controlling my ATEM Mini Pro. Now, what you've got to realize is this is not doing any heavy lifting within the software. The ATEM Mini Pro is the one doing all that processing. This is just remoting in and obviously giving you that control. So what I would like to look at here is just a brief overview of the software. I think one thing to be really clear on straight away is down in the left-hand corner is your cog for your settings within the ATEM. So this is where you'll set that video standard that everything is then working to. You've also got audio settings, multi-view settings. You can label all those inputs that are coming in. So again, giving you better reference on screen or on your multi-view of what it is those different inputs are. You've then got hyperdeck controls and remote control functionality through RS422. Really good thing to show, I think, at this stage, just that initial setup. So moving from left to right on this main screen, so you can see at the bottom we've got 4 tabs. We're in the switcher page at the moment, and that is where you will spend a lot of your time. Top left, you've got program, and you can see here that basically if I start switching, that is going to be a straight cut live. So anything that you do switching on program is going to be a direct switch of that program feed. So again, it's going to be directed out straight away to whatever it is that program feed is running into. Below that is where you can see your previews, and this is a really nice touch that allows you to basically load in previews within your preview screen of your multi-view, and again, you know, have a better view of what it is that you're about to then cut directly to on your program out. Next up towards the middle, we've got some transition styles down at the bottom, and then above that we've got our sort of upstream keyer settings for bobbing them on air and obviously previewing them as well. You can see on air at the moment because I have my picture-in-picture on air, and that is utilizing that upstream key. And then you've got a fade bar. So at the minute you can see I'm on cam 1 in my preview. So if I start to use that, I can do a nice little fade up into cam 1 and then a fade back to my computer. Fade to black obviously can be quite a dangerous button. So again, be very aware of that. That will fade everything down to black and then everything up from black if it is active. And then above that is where we've got our downstream keyer, and that's where we can preview and bob on air. So just over to the right hand side, we've got our palettes, and that's where you can start to work with the critical settings within some of those upstream keys, downstream keys. So if I start to flip open there, you can see this is where you're going to work critically with those settings. And obviously once they are set, you do actually have functionality from the unit to be bobbing them on and off. Obviously this is where you kind of set all the parameters of how they will look on screen. You've then got a media player, which is going to show you kind of what's showing up in the media player, and hyperdeck. If you've got hyperdeck connected that you want to trigger some VTR in, that's where you can start to look to connect all that stuff in. And then finally, the output within the switcher page. That's where you're going to set things like your live streaming. So again, platforms with streaming keys, and then whether you want to actually dictate to going on air from there. Again, you've got things on the unit to do that. Record stream. So again, I've got no drives connected, but if you were working with USB-C, SSD or flash drives, that's where you can set that up to obviously do that recording through the USB-C output. Capture video, capture still, and a timecode generator. So again, the timecode generator is a really good feature that works with our pocket cinema cameras, in that sense of when we talk about the ISOs and the DaVinci Resolve project file and that relinking of media. If you were wanting to work with sort of internal B-roll shot in the cameras, that's sending that timecode to the camera. So again, everything becomes in sync. So when you do open DaVinci, you've got a seamless sync of everything. Moving on into the media page. So this is where you can see any media that you've been loaded in for logos, titles, graphics, that kind of stuff. Here you've got 20 slots and one media player. Be aware on the extremes you do have 2 media players. So a nice little upgrade there. Audio page. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I will a little bit later on in the practical session. And then we've got camera. So this is where we can start to have actual camera control with our Blackmagic cameras that I'm using here, which is my Pocket 4K. So that's a nice little overview, hopefully, of the different parts of the software and things to be really aware of. I think one more just to touch on is when you have created, this is something I actually spoke with the customer about yesterday, and they weren't aware of it, and I actually think this could be a really beneficial feature for a lot of places that are potentially not so tech savvy and wanting to now get into this live streaming, is this save startup slate. And basically that means when I set everything within here, for example, I've got my audio routing through the microphone attached to the camera. I've got that all set up. I've got my cameras coming in and how I want it. Basically, if I save that as a startup slate, a startup state, that basically means when I power on the unit, it will power on with all those settings intact. So a real nice way, if it is that you have someone technical within the team, to set everything up, save that startup state, and then if it is for any reason they're not able to get down and work on the production, or if it is just the way the team is coordinated, it means that potentially it could be a nice, really easy way to allow for operation. Okay, so now what I'm going to go I'm going to go into basic ways of looking to create some identity. So we talked about things like titles and logos to help establish and obviously create that kind of brand identity within your production. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my media page. So I've loaded in 2 bits of media at the moment, and these are just static graphics that were created in Keynote. The first one, which is the most basic, is just a black background with some colored text, and all I've done there is dragged it in from my media library down into my active media player, which now means that is my active logo title. So when I switch back to here and work with my media player 1, that's what will be active within there. So to do this, we are going to be working with a downstream keyer. So I'm going to go over to my palettes and then drop in to my downstream keyer. Now what I want is the fill source to be media player 1. And then what I want the key source to be is black, because again, I created this in Keynote. It's a black background with colored text. So I want the ATEM basically to think anything black is to be keyed out. So if I key that out and then I go on air with that, excuse me, let's just take the key off. And apologies, I am just trying to work out why this doesn't want to go on air. No, it doesn't like that. Brilliant. Okay, I'm actually struggling to get that on air for some reason, which is really annoying. let's get that in my preview and pop that into there. Take that off air for now. Back to my comp. This is crazy. Okay, I'm just going to go back to cab 1.
We had it up for a second there. It did come up with a black screen with some red text on it for a second there.
Yeah, I know. For some reason, I'm guessing, yeah, it's because a pre-multiplied key was not activated. Apologies for that. I basically went into the software and basically tried to reset all parameters because, again, I've been working with this stuff and I wanted it to be as fresh as possible, which obviously means I should have remembered to click in my pre-multiplied key. So apologies for that. Quick freak out, but hopefully we're back on air, which is great.
We have some
We're back
graphics.
and it's on air. So you can see, obviously, the way that has worked. It's not the most advanced title. I wouldn't say it's the most professional title, but it's a really quick and easy way, again, for people just getting started with this kind of stuff to be working with some more sort of consumer-based software that will allow to generate this kind of stuff. Now, a really key feature with the ATEM is that the ATEM can understand transparency. So I am just going to cut back to into the software. So what we can do is actually build graphics with transparent layers, and the ATEM is actually able to reference these, and this will create a much more professional looking, crisp, clarity sort of looking title. So I'm going to go into my media player. So here we go. This is again a logo created in Keynote with a transparent background. Obviously it's showing as black just because the reference, the ATEM is referencing that and just showing black as the background. So if we go back in, because I've obviously got my key 1 active and it is referencing how I've keyed for that other image, it's instantly keyed it and has essentially created that overlay of this new title. The problem there is obviously our key is looking for black, so it's basically keying out everything that's black. Obviously the transparency is already being keyed out, so now if any black parts are within the actual title, that's being keyed out. So what we'd want to do there, and this is again talking about that kind of the intelligence of the ATEM, is you'd want to go down to Media Player 1 key. And what that will do is actually just key. It will look for anything that is keyable. So again, that transparency that is just instantly then keyed out. That then brings in all that black. So again, that shading of the title, you can see it up in the top right of the screen as well. The Blackmagic design logo is now popped a lot more as well. And another thing to reference here as well is if you actually have Photoshop on your computer when downloading the ATEM software control, it will automatically add a Photoshop plugin. Now that means when you're in Photoshop, you're able, rather than doing exports, then finding your image layer or whatever graphics in your desktop and then having to bring it in, you're able now to export directly into the ATEM software control from Photoshop. So again, if you're a little bit more advanced on those title creations and you've got Photoshop, you can basically export it straight into the media library, so straight into here from Photoshop. And you can even export them to go directly into your media player down here as well. So again, a really kind of quick and efficient way for people to start actually loading in graphics potentially live in real time, and updating graphics as well that will work live and in real time as well. So moving on. Again, so they're great ways to get some titles up on screen, and again, that was utilizing that downstream key. So I'm just going to take that back off air, and I'm going to just get rid of my downstream key for a moment. So another really powerful feature within the ATEM range, and especially now the ATEM mini range, is the advanced chroma key potential that this has. Now this is something that's actually come down from our larger, more expensive switches, and has been utilized now within the ATEM mini range. So within the ATEM mini, the mini pro and the mini pro ISO, you have one upstream keyer. And within the ATEM Mini Extreme and Extreme ISO, you actually have 4 upstream keyers with 4 advanced chroma key potentials. So again, hopefully listening to that customer feedback and again, ramping that up for people that need that extra upstream key potential. So let's look into the upstream key sort of parameters. At the moment, you can see there's 4 tabs there, and DVE is active at the moment because you can see my picture in picture is active on screen. If I was to then go into my chroma, for example, that will obviously get rid of that because we have only one upstream key available within the ATEM Mini Pro that I'm working on. So what we're going to do is click into that, and again, it probably has just freaked out a little bit, so I'm just going to take that off air. That was purely because, again, the DVE was on air, and then I've clicked into my chroma, and because that was on air, that obviously is going to start to think about what that chroma is doing. Now, what I've done here is just quickly, this is just an image that was shot, a terrible, horrible image that I do not like of myself, shot recently, just some stuff like this for promoting. But what I'm able to do with that in something like Keynote is, because it was shot on a white background, I can actually create an instant alpha layer by basically keying out all that white. So basically I did that in Keynote, and then I added a block color background. So I added my green screen essentially onto that. Really quick, really simple, and again, all done in Keynote. But what I'm going to do, and again, just to show you how quick and simple it is to bring things into your media library. Again, I don't know why the preview thumbnails kind of freaked out a little bit on that, but as I drag and drop it, you can see I can literally just drag and drop it straight into the media library there. I'm going to bring it down and activate it into my media player. So that is now active in Media Player 1. So what do I want my fill source to be set to? Well, I want it to be set to Media Player 1. And then once that's happened, I can go into my chroma sample, and basically, because I've now set that, it is active in my preview screen. So this little box you can see running around here, if you actually pay attention to the color there, it's actually referencing that in the preview screen. So you can see that's all my face, hair, and then you've got the green in and around that. Now what you can do is change region. So again, if you're working on something that is a proper green screen lit backdrop, that's when you're probably going to want to work on a larger region. So again, starting to look more at that kind of tonality of the green, and hopefully trying to obviously do a real cracking job at getting rid of that. Now, because I've whacked this in as a block color within Keynote, I know that that is a real good consistency of that green all the way across. So I'm gonna, that's my chroma sample done. The green is now set in, so I can come out of that, and instantly, there you go. I've obviously started to take that out. You're not gonna be able to see it yet because I've just got it loaded into my preview screen. But what I'm gonna do is just go back to cam 1, and I'm gonna go on air. So there is that image now chroma keyed out and overlaid over my camera 1. Now, obviously, there's not going to be many times where instantly that's in a perfect position, you're happy with everything. But what you have got is some really effective parameters down here to be starting to actually work with that. So you can see foreground is going to start taking out foreground. Background can be a real critical one. And as you see, if you're looking on screen, you should see that basically it's just starting to peel off a little bit of the edges. So if there is any kind of spill edge of green or anything like that, that background side, it can be really nifty just to take a bit of it out. Again, you don't want to go too much because it starts to actually take a little bit of the form of the kind of shoulders and stuff, but just a nice little touch. And to be honest, when working with this kind of stuff, it is normally little sort of fine touches to really help give that, you know, the quality that you need. You've then got color adjustment. So again, if I wanted to pop this image out a little bit, I could bring in a little bit of contrast, maybe boost a little bit of saturation. Obviously never go too far with that kind of thing. But then what I can also do is something called the flying key. So if I click that flying key, instantly it bobs it straight down into the corner, almost like a little picture in picture. What I can do is obviously move that around. First thing I would probably do is look to size that up. So let's bring that up like that. And then I'm going to start to just lay it into the bottom right corner. And there you go, a nice way to, again, just add some kind of branding content that kind of, again, we're just really getting back to that creation of identity and making yourself recognizable instantly from viewers. And that's going to be a real key thing when using something like this for live content, live broadcast content. So hopefully you'll agree that's a really powerful feature. And again, remember that the ATEM Mini Extremes do have a little bit more available within that. So I'm going to now just go back to my picture in picture. So this is what you will have seen active throughout the whole entirety of me running through the presentation. So as I click into that, again, you've got all these parameters to move for position and size. One thing to be very aware of is when you set any manual parameters within here, if you were to go down to the actual hardware of the ATEM Mini Pro and start to knock about, you have 4 presets for bottom right, top left, and bottom left. And basically, anytime you do that, it will basically change any of those parameters back to just the standards for these different picture-in-pictures. So again, if it is something that you're wanting to do some very critical changes to this, maybe something like a macro could be a real benefit. And again, remember the ATEM Mini Extremes actually have macro dedicated button functionality from the unit for calling those back. But again, just to give you an idea, I can start to size this up, and again I can just start to move that X and Y to obviously reframe it. And then another really cool thing is mask. And again, there might be times, and I kind of see this maybe in sort of gamers, people that want as much on screen as possible. So I'm just going to flip back to something like that. If I was to go in from my left and right, let's go, let's call it 6, and then 6 again. I might have gone a little too far. Actually, not too bad. And that basically will take out, you know, any of that other background that you don't want in that shot. If it is just a picture-in-picture of just your face, to add a little bit of context, and again, give the audience something to really get into sort of interacting with. Something like that might be really good, just to obviously move that around. You've then got shadows and borders on the DVE. So again, I've actually done this for this one. I don't know if anyone was watching the one on the Pocket 6K Pro. I have added some little features in here because I just thought, you know what, I'll jazz it up a little bit. So I've softened the outer edge a little bit. I've added a very tiny little width border just to add a little bit of black around the edge, and again, just to help that pop a little bit. And that is, again, something that's going to be very much down to user preference of what they would like to do on that. So hopefully that's a good little Kickstarter in this main page of the software, and yeah, hopefully shown you some really nice little features to help with creating that sort of brand identity and content. Flipping over, there's the media page again. I'm not going to talk too much about that anymore because we have delved into it, and hopefully you've seen the benefits and what it's capable of. I'm going to click into the audio page now and just have a brief run through of what we've got going on in here.
Sorry, Chris. I think we've got you as the background rather than the software.
You certainly have, sir.
There we go.
We're back on. The media page, you didn't need to look at that anyway. We've already been there. We've seen it. Audio page. So this is a really effective audio sort of software mixer that allows you to do loads of stuff with your audio. And it's kind of brought in from our Fairlight mixing within DaVinci. So it's got some really powerful features. You've got equalizer, so a 6-band parametric EQ. So if I click into that, again, you can start to really work with what it is that, say, it's dialogue. This can be really effective to add some more warmth to your dialogue or things like that. I haven't actually worked with it today just because I'm actually quite impressed with my audio quality coming through. I hope you are too. So what I've done is actually gone into the dynamics and just basically added a compressor and then a limiter. Limiters can be really beneficial. Someone like me, sometimes I can get quite excited and just start screaming about stuff, and then maybe I'm a little bit less involved and I can start to dial down a bit. So that limiter is just going to stop me from sort of popping anyone's eardrums when I start to get excited. So can be a real benefit. And again, for that broadcast quality standard, a limiter is really effective in that. Another really effective thing that we have within the audio page is through your mic input. So on your ATEM, you've got two 3.5mm jack inputs for mic, and they are line and mic level. You've got delay settings here. So if you are running out to an audio mixer, you're running loads of microphones, and then you're going to input that audio mixer through to the ATEM Mini. This delay will help to eradicate any form of loss of sync within audio and video, because audio is always something that will come first if there is a form of delay in that. So again, really effective, broadcast quality, and again, something that is so important when working with external audio, working with mixers and things like that, and then plumbing that audio in. As you can see, the way I've got this set up is that my mic is going into my camera. That's then all running down that HDMI, and that gives me obviously the control here for anything. So I've added a little bit of extra gain in there just to get a really good quality signal coming through. And this is a real cool page. I really like what we can do here with our Blackmagic cameras. So my camera one is a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K. I've got lift, gamma and gain control. So again, if you're used to working in DaVinci, this will become sort of second nature. But what it allows for me to do is, again, you'll see it in the picture-in-picture. I can start to work with my shadows, my lift, my midtones, my gamma, and my highlights, my gain, and start to obviously add in color. So something creatively, you know, probably you wouldn't be doing too much in there, but this is really good if you are balancing cameras remotely. So again, if you've got a couple of Blackmagic cameras out, you know, on your in your studio, and you're in a gallery space, instead of having to run to cameras and change settings and then run back to monitors, you've got it all here directly from the software, using a beautiful multi-view to see all those inputs coming in and give quick matching. So again, efficiency, and just being able to get a really close match as well, because obviously when you're running back to monitors all the time, you know, you start to forget little bits. So having all that here and again on the multi-view, I feel is really beneficial. To get into there a little bit deeper, you can actually click this little expander button here, and that will give you that lift, gamma and gain in a separate color wheel, and then some other settings as well, like contrast, saturation, hue and RGB or YRGB, and then popping out back into the normal kind of 4 setup. And again, this depends on how many inputs you have to how many you'll actually see here. But underneath that, you've got gain control, so that's the ISO of the camera. You've got shutter, and you've got white balance. So again, some really critical features that can be a real benefit for a remote operation. Here you've got your f-stop, so iris. So you can see as I start to dial that down, I get horribly darker in my picture-in-picture, and then I can boost that back up and get it to a nice little spot. Let's not go too crazy, maybe something like that. You've also got an autofocus button. So again, a one push autofocus. So if I was to randomly get really out of focus like that, and I just wanted some real quick way to just bang it back in focus, click that button. And again, it's just going to give that quick one push autofocus, and we are back on. You also have zoom control. So if you're working with a motorized zoom lens, then you actually can work with zoom from here as well. If anyone is interested in that, we do have some tested motorized lenses that we've worked with for that. So hopefully that is everything sort of tab wise. I've obviously given you some really good tools and tips for setup of the software, good ways of keeping, you know, the state of your ATEM Mini Pro in the same every time you're power cycling, and also hopefully a good overview of the different tabs and what they're capable of. I'm going to just click back into Switcher and just want to talk about obviously the outputs of these of the ATEM range, the ATEM Mini range. Obviously on the ATEM Mini, the Pro and the ISO, you have one HDMI output and you've got one USB-C output. The HDMI output is kind of an aux HDMI in the sense I can send anything to that HDMI. The way I've got it set at the minute is multi-view. Obviously, kind of 9 times out of 10, I think a lot of people will use it in that way. Obviously, be aware the ATEM Mini doesn't have that HDMI multi-view out. But what you can do is you can actually do it from the ATEM Mini Pro itself. Is I can actually dial in if I want input 1 to be full screen my HDMI, input 2, 3 or 4. I've then got multi-view, which obviously brings up that lovely multi-view where you can see everything that's going on within the production, and then a program out as well. So if I did want it my program to be sent down that HDMI, I could just set it within the program output on there and then send that down the HDMI as well. The USB-C is always taking that program output. So that can either be fed into a computer like I'm doing now and obviously taking that stream, or it can be recorded to an SSD or flash drive. And obviously then we've got the ISO range, which does obviously all the inputs as well, gives you separated audio files and your DaVinci Resolve project file as well for getting straight into DaVinci and kind of maybe repolishing or remastering that edit. On the ATEM Mini Extremes, obviously you've got two HDMIs and you've got two USB-Cs. Those HDMIs are proper aux HDMI. So again, you've got full control over what you want to send out through those HDMIs. So one could be a program out, the other could be your multi-view. So again, you've got more flexibility there and just more additional outputs to work with. And then your USB-Cs, they are two independent USB-Cs. So you can be recording to an SSD on one and then obviously streaming to a computer via that UVC chip in as a webcam input, and then obviously streaming direct to your platform. So that kind of brings us to an end within the demo section. So give me 2 seconds and I'm just going to flip back into screen into separate display mode, so extended display. So we now should see once I... Okay, so we are back in. I've actually remembered to properly switch everything today, so that's great. Solutions and workflows. So our product family is vast, and although we might have solutions for a number of different customers, it might be challenging for somebody to really identify the product range, let alone the model that can fit into their workflow. Therefore, we feel it's beneficial to take you through some of these key products that help you get started, scale up, and eventually take your production to that next level. So we're going to explain the core components of the live streaming environment. So whilst live streaming applications all differ and are used for different purposes and have different target audiences, they do all share 4 core components, which we can categorize as such. Video sources or sources, things like cameras, computer outputs, media players, and essentially the video content that we want the audience to see. Capture device or interface, this defines the hardware used to connect the video sources into the computer for streaming. Software layer or streaming engine, so the encoding of that video signal to a stream-friendly format. This can either be done in software utilizing computer resources or in hardware like we're doing right here. Streaming platform, this is the service where that video is then going to be streamed to, conferencing, webinars, or live video applications. The size and number of products used will generally scale up as we progress from looking at web conferencing to webinars and then up to webcasting. As we look at the different types of web broadcasting in more detail, we can see where each of the 4 components we've just outlined fit in. So the first example shows the simplest form and way to go live, and this is bringing in our newly released Web Presenter HD. It's recently announced and it represents a single plug and play solution to bring any SDI source over USB-C or Ethernet. It features a professional hardware streaming engine for direct streaming via Ethernet directly into your streaming platform. Alternatively, it can take advantage of the UVC technology we've just been talking about with the USB-C outputs, which means that the software, for example, like Skype or Zoom, will recognize this unit as a 1080p webcam source. No drivers required, and it also offers the newly released sort of update, which gives tethering to mobile devices like the ATEM Mini Pro and the Extreme, so that you can actually stream now using 5G and 4G mobile phone data, and actually gives you a kind of redundancy within that. So if for any reason your network was to go down, it will flip and give a kind of seamless handover to that sort of mobile network and allow for that stream to continue, which could be really beneficial. So yeah, the web conference and presentation will be up and running within a minute. Again, this is all very plug and play stuff. So going back to our ATEM Mini, in this example, we can see a very basic setup in which a couple of sources are attached to the ATEM Mini and connected via USB-C to the laptop. This is very similar to the Web Presenter initial example, but in this case, the unit is detected as a 1080p webcam source device with all the benefits of mixing transitions and effects like picture-in-picture that we saw in action earlier. So things like educational and training institutions as well as esports demand very similar setups to this. The next example really shows a good use of the ATEM Mini peripheral connections. So here the USB-C is being used for that external SSD recording, the Ethernet port for streaming and to control the unit. So using that software control, and 3.5mm jack analog audio input, again both mic and line level in there, for additional external audio sources. So this is great for a live stream production with the intent of a subsequent repurpose of the contents, thinking about like training tutorials, seminars, sport events and highlights. An ATEM Mini Pro ISO can in fact record all of those sources and program and generate that DaVinci Resolve project file for you to jump straight into and get even more creative And I don't think I need to touch on today how powerful DaVinci is and what is capable within that piece of software. So we've seen how easy it is to really get started with this stuff. And obviously, with those, easy but yet very powerful features, we also know that you want to be ahead of the game. And you'll soon ask, if you are working with those kind of simpler setups, what's next and where do I take it from here? How do I expand and grow? So example 4, as we mentioned earlier, by combining a number of additional products, you can build a very interesting workflow and diversify your services. In this example, we have introduced an ATEM streaming bridge, which allows us to convert the ATEM Mini Pro ISO or Extreme Ethernet output to SDI or HDMI, either directly or through a simple router, meaning that we can distribute that PGM, so that program signal, to a different site or area of the building by using a pre-existing Ethernet infrastructure, and then distribute it to other devices, perhaps another monitor, another hyperdeck mini recorder, or an external encoder, all simultaneously. But we can also forward a port for the ATEM streaming bridge to connect to the internet, so your program output can now be reached globally. Perhaps this becomes a remote feed for another ATEM Mini Pro sitting in a different location around the internet world. You can duplicate this setup over and over again and basically create a global network of ATEM Mini Pros feeding in someone else's program into your program, and again, that could be really powerful. So example 5 is webcasting 4K. So again, a way of bringing that production value up. But there are more demanding productions that will require delivery at even higher resolutions over the internet. And in this case, the example shows an I/O device, namely the Ultra Studio Mini 4K, one of the many in our capture and playback family, which allows you to capture the UHD program output coming from the ATEM Television Studio Pro 4K in this example to your computer, and in this case a streaming software layer like OBS or Restream IO, where you can control many aspects of your incoming feed like bitrate, resolution, encoding and recording codec. So basically a gateway to a streaming platform and working in that higher resolution. So to conclude this section, we'd just like to show you a quick matrix of the ATEM mini models, which we've been kind of talking or using throughout this presentation. We invite you to take a snapshot if it is something of interest, and we're not going to really go into this right now because we could be here for quite a while, but hopefully at a glance you can see the benefits of all of those.
Maybe just hide your picture-in-picture quickly, Chris, so that they can take a screenshot.
Yeah, of course. I literally just looked over and did think, you can't see those final ticks. Okay, hopefully you've all managed to grab that if you need it. So what I now want to do is just finish up before Q&A and just talk about some sort of user examples. So we really want to offer you some context, and let's have a look at a few webcasting and live stream real use cases that really condense what we've discussed so far and show how it's been employed in the real world. So broadcasters obviously are not new to this. They've already adapted their offer to cover TV programs and live events so that you can access them on demand via smart platforms in exchange for subscriptions, pass or license fee, Sky Sports, BBC iPlayer. We all know about that. So the Gadget Show, the ATEM Mini Pro really helped the show to stay on screens during lockdown. Usually the program is made with an OB truck and a production team of 20 plus people. A key part of the show is for presenters to react to pre-recorded segments that have just been shown to the viewers. So the ATEM Mini Pro was used to throw VTs, graphics and stings onto other monitors around the studio. It was also used to host Wallop of the Week, which is a segment that takes place on Zoom. So again, a real kind of great user case, real world story for again a program that we're probably all quite aware of, and again using our products in a really effective way. Moving on to Darude, so an electric dance music producer, most famous for the classic track Sandstorm, which you may be aware of, is using the ATEM Mini Pro and Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K to stream a weekly lockdown series online. He uses Twitch as his preferred platform, and the Finnish-based, internationally acclaimed artist established the 3 weekly live streams, attracting more than 250,000 live views across 35 streams collectively since its launch in March, the highest single stream attracting over 12k views alone. I'm moving on to GBMC Healthcare System, which is a 342-bed medical centre that provides acute and subacute care, handling more than 23,000 admissions and 52,000 emergency room visits annually. In addition to internal town hall meetings, GBMC Healthcare System and Focal Point Productions also began streaming frequent Facebook Live sessions featuring clinicians and hospital leaderships discussing timely topics. And finally, Playing for Change, the organisation brings together a diverse mix of musicians from all music genres performing in their local environment. Concerts are broadcast via the Playing for Change YouTube channel, which has more than 2 million subscribers. International Foundation created to connect people through music and have been powered by the ATEM Mini Pro and Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. And our real biggie, so the Emmys, so California-based nominees for this year's Emmy ceremony, so obviously last year's Emmy ceremony, were streamed live into the telecast with kits built around the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and ATEM Mini Pro. The scope of the event was looking to do something that was really ambitious, never really been done before, with more than 100 nominees, all obviously, broadcasting their stuff sort of streamed back to their main control room. And so obviously, hugely little margin for error, and the systems all work perfectly, and it was a great production. So again, a really kind of high-end user case there that's obviously been really pushed since what's happened throughout the last year, but really great to see our products being used in something like that, and again, just to see it all working so well. So obviously, don't forget, should you need any more advice, our resellers are always available to discuss alternatives with you, and our website is always kept up to date with latest news announcements, as well as manuals, FAQs and updates. Also be aware that if you do need to get in touch with us, we have a general pre-sales email, which is presales-emea@blackmagicdesign.com. But I'd just like to conclude before we jump into the Q&A. Obviously, we've been through quite a long journey today, and we've discussed a number of topics regarding the web broadcasting and live stream market. We've given you a picture of why this is so important and relevant now more than ever, and also offered our advice on how we could approach this business and select the right tool for it based on your goals. Then we've seen practical examples on how to use those amazing features that you can find in the ATEM family range, and we've concluded on a little overview on some uses and production designs to either get you started or maybe expand and grow the current setup in this exciting market. But we're also here to listen to you, and therefore we can now obviously open the floor to the Q&A.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that was really beneficial for you guys.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. That was a fantastic run through of the various products. Now is obviously we haven't got a huge amount left time-wise, so now is a fantastic time. If any of you at home have got questions, leave them in the chat there. I'm just going to jump straight into a couple that have been sitting there throughout. So right near the beginning, Pete Hamilton, thank you very much for joining us, Pete, asked, will Vimeo be added as a streaming destination on the Web Presenter HD? I know you can do it via XML and coding, but I'm a cameraman and editor, so not quite bright enough to jump into that. Do you know whether Vimeo is something that Blackmagic are looking at?
I'm not aware of it right now, but I can certainly feed it back.
Definitely want to feedback, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Let me feed it back to the development guys and see what we can do there. But like you say, obviously there are potential to add these in via the XML. And again, actually, it's something I've been looking into quite a bit because again, customers are asking me, and there is some really good info out there in our forum that really helps you to get there if you are unsure. And again, obviously contact us if needs be. Absolutely.
So Rob asked about how we're doing this side-by-side layout that you're looking at right now, which I did answer quickly, but let's just chat about it. To clarify a bit of our setup here, so Chris is actually joining our system here in the showroom through a Skype call. So the setup that Chris was talking about earlier with his ATEM Mini Pro and his Blackmagic 4K that we've been looking at throughout this is his local setup, and then he's using his ATEM Mini Pro to connect it into a Skype call, which is how it's being brought in to my setup over here. I'm using a much bigger system so that Dan can operate it, a TriCaster setup, which is what we normally use for all of all of our streams, and that's what's driving this this side by side that you're looking at here. So if anyone was sitting at home wondering about that,
it's very effective, I have to say.
It does seem to work quite well. I'm amazed actually at the quality of the Skype call coming from you. I don't know whether that's the encoding from.
You weren't when we first set up the call, were you?
No, but it improved massively. It has improved massively.
Oh, I'm glad. Oh, I am glad.
So Rob Moses is asking, what are you using, Chris, for your audio? Are you using a lav or a shotgun or an external audio interface?
I am using a shotgun mic that is right at the limits of the mic stand. That is basically right here, and my camera is quite far away, so it's fully reaching right over, and I'm just going directly into the Mini XLR on the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and embedding that down the HDMI.
Excellent. Okay, Kirk is asking, when is the Micro Studio Camera 4K available again? I mean, the Micro Studio Camera 4K is available. Here's it on our website right now. We're saying 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know whether that's an accurate lead time there or not. I don't know whether there's any supply issues on that. But if you contact our sales team, they can find out exactly the time frame that we can get one of these to you. But it's still a current product from Blackmagic, so it will be available. And he's asking, can you load VST or AU plugins, presumably into the audio interface side of the ATEM Mini software? I don't believe it has any support for external audio plugins like external compressors and things like that, does it?
No, I don't think it does, and it's not something I'm aware of. Again, this is all coming in from Fairlight, so these are our kind of proprietary sort of workflows that we feel are pretty hot on it anyway. But yeah,
so Fairlight does have support, I believe, for VST and AU plugins, but obviously that isn't the full version of Fairlight that's inside these. It's using Fairlight technology. To bring in the core functionality that is needed. And also remember, Kirk, that anything that is being done in real time like this with streaming, the manufacturers like Blackmagic do have to be so careful over the features that they add in, because anything that slows down and adds too much processing power obviously has massive ramifications. So opening it up to a whole third-party world of plugins, although that would be fantastic for audio quality, could potentially really put a resource hog on the system, which might well be something that they wouldn't ever really want to do, and nor would we want them to do that.
Yeah, and it could be that classic thing of, again, using that ISO performance of going back in and having all that kind of in a repolished piece of software that you can then add that extra bit of production value, and again, just use that to kind of live stream out, and then use a repolished, remastered upload to just help show, maybe you go to 4K or whatever, but hopefully that would be a really good way to get around that.
Sure. So you might need to jump back to your slides quickly here, Chris, but Philip is saying, on the slide of the 4K web presenter, what was the box next to the ATEM? So the 4K web presenter slide.
Oh yeah, so it was the Ultra Studio Mini 4K. Give me 2 secs and I will just get that. There you go.
Let me also bring it
so that is one of our capture and playback devices, and again will allow for work with a sort of restreaming software like OBS or Restream.
So if we jump across to my laptop here, this is it on the Pro V site. And so this is useful for so many things. This is actually what we have over on Dan's desk for his editing setup to drive 4K output to a reference monitor for his post-production suite. So this is a very useful 4K toolbox product where it can be a capture or a play out device to a computer. It is very, very useful indeed.
Yeah, and again, if you've got any further questions on capture and playback devices, do feel free to contact obviously Carl or ProAV, or at presales-emea@blackmagicdesign.com, and we'll be happy to help.
Okay, so one last little thing from Matt, who says, one more for feedback. We're waiting for updates to the SDI world of Blackmagic design equipment, a studio camera, low-end SDI ATEM, please, with a very drawn-out word, please. I've heard this lots of times before, and I'm sure you have, Chris, that there is a demand out there for a refresh of the SDI. All we can do, obviously, is feed it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And, hopefully it can be quite seen that we've done a lot in this last year.
Absolutely.
And, we are, I'm sure thoughts are now moving on to things like that. But again, can't comment, but I will certainly feed it back. And yeah, hopefully future.
Of course. The one thing I would just add to that real quickly is that Blackmagic do already have a existing lineup of very good SDI switches. Really the main thing that, we can see them here. So these ATEM minis all here at the top are the ones we've been talking about, the HDMI only ones. Then down here we've got the ATEM TV Studio HD, the Television Studio Pro 4K and the Pro HD. These are actually very, very comprehensive SDI mixers. The real thing that they're missing that the ATEMs have is the streaming and encoding and recording and ISO side of it. And those would be something that I'm sure people out there would love to see in it. One quick little question from the Tank Museum. Considering the newly announced product, will the ATEM Mini Pro continue to be supported or phased out? Thanks, Matt. I mean, the ATEM Mini Pro is very much a current product, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we've done is brought those new ones in to bolster that range and give people the options. The range is 5, and they do very different things and allow for scalability, and again should give everyone access from all different budgets for whatever it is that they're looking to do. So no, they're absolutely supported.
And they're all running the same software, right? So any firmware updates that come to one would come to all of them. The difference is the physical hardware, obviously, in terms of the amount of inputs and everything, but also the encoding grunt that's inside them. The actual software and firmware and updates side that would be what would be not supported or phased out, as he says, is shared across all of the ATEM Mini range. Yeah.
Yeah, and also just touching back on that other question about the SDI and ISOs and all that kind of stuff, just to give some context is, again, creating 4K ISOs is a big difference in creating 1080 ISO files. So again, recording data rates and things like that. I mean, that we do have solutions out there that are able to do it, just not internally in the actual switches. So again, looking at HyperDecks for triggered recording for your ISOs and things like that. But again, as you're moving up in that resolution, the demands become much higher on processing. So again, if it is something you're interested in, please do reach out to us and we can talk you through some potential solutions for that.
Blackmagic absolutely has solutions ready for it. It just requires multiple boxes rather than having an all-in-one like these ATEM minis. I mean, they have it for 4K. You even have it for 8K with the Constellation setup. So it's absolutely something that you guys can already cover. And we have lots of customers that are using 4K SDI setups very happily. Okay. All right, that's the end of the questions there. So thank you very much for everyone who answered a question there. And thank you very much, Chris, for the rundown. It's been great to have you back.
Yeah, it's been great to be here, and I just hope it's been beneficial for everyone. And like I said, do feel free to reach out if something's not been covered today.
Absolutely. So these are going to be available to watch online after the fact, but there will be a gap between now, so they won't be available to watch online straight away, but they will be coming soon. So if you did want to watch back on this and miss it, and then you notice that it's not available live straight away, don't worry, it will be up at some point. It might just be a couple of weeks. There's just a few things behind the scenes to work on. But thank you all so much for joining us, and if you want to buy any of the products mentioned, please do get in touch with the Pro V sales team. I'm actually just refreshing the site to see how many of those ATEM Mini Extreme ISOs we've got left in stock, and it's gone down to 5 while this stream, so it's gone down from 9 to 5 during this stream. So those are going to be gone by the end of the day, definitely. So if you want to get your hands on one of these ATEM Mini ISO Extremes, make sure you're placing an order very soon, because they're not going to hang about for much longer. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you very much, Chris, for being such a good host, and we will see you very soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.